Here are some upcoming opportunities as well during the month of July. Tomorrow it's Adobe Summit, which is happening in Sydney, and the focus is going to be on exploring the future of AI-driven customer experience. There are going to be keynote sessions, some hands-on labs, and a lot of networking opportunities. Other than that, we have upcoming user groups going to be in San Jose or Tucson, Austin, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. They're both virtual and in-person formats. So here we are. My name is Ruchi. I'm working as senior manager at Tricity Interactive. Along with me is joining Balkar. Balkar, over to you.
Thanks, Ruchi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the patience. Thanks, everyone. Um,
No
Great.
worries.
Looking forward to what you learn from the summit. I think it's new that Adobe is having these regional summits now.
That's
Um,
right.
and okay, I am Bulkar. I have worked with Ruchi for a long time at university. I am currently working as a marketing manager at Here Technologies, and I have been using Marketo for almost like 12 years now, and we are here to talk about uh, a topic called the cost of doing it wrong and how to prevent it. So I think, Ruchi, we can get started. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Um, okay. Um, okay. The reason to pick this topic was, we actually thought a lot about this. We wanted to do this topic for a while now, and finally we are able to do it. It's semi marketo, semi strategy, and it's more like things are changing. Like if you are not living under a rock, you already know that uh, strategic roles make more sense in short term, even in long term. So there's a lot of discussion about AI. A lot of it is hype, I agree, but a lot of it is also real. And I think it's a good time to think about how to change our approach on how we work in Marketo from a career perspective as well. That okay, what we can do, how we can approach Marketo in terms like it benefits us in long term, even in the world which kind of seems like is dominated by AI. So we have been all there. On screen, you see a very simple loop wherein we attempt something, we fail, we iterate, and during this cycle, we kind of figure out what works. And that's kind of the essence of what we are going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about, let's start to talk about mm, for example, we have all made mistakes. Like I have made mistakes, Ruchi have made mistakes, like we have seen the circumstances. So those timings are pretty unreal, and we have all been there. Maybe you ran a campaign and later realized that it was last month's newsletter, or we maybe skipped scheduling it. Um, and putting clear and repeatable processes in place can reduce the human error. So that's what we are going to talk about. And what I mean by this is, uh, there are experts in this place. When you're talking about this, like there are two ways. Either you can approach anything from a very fresh perspective, that you attack it from your own assumptions and go into this loop. Or if you can go to the next slide, Ruchi, and you can learn from that, right? So that's usually, and that attempt is usually driven by a goal. You want to achieve something, right? We're going to keep that goal within Marketo. For example, maybe you want to increase your open rates, maybe you want to increase your efficiency of database, personalization, things like dynamic content, or maybe you want to migrate to new email designer. There is a ton of work which we do in Marketo, and that's what we're going to talk about. How do we a project. So there can be a goal, and that goal is something which will drive your assumption. So let's suppose you want to have 1000 opens, and you kind of know like 10% is generic open rate. So obviously you're going to expect that we need a database of 10,000 people to at least send to that campaign to figure it out, because that's an assumption. The experiment is the campaign itself, and your results, the email performance reports, is the evidence. And then you learn. Maybe it's 800 opens, maybe it's 1200 opens, and you kind of iterate. And it's a fancy word for trial and error called cybernetics. Essentially, it's experimentation where you are getting feedback. This feedback is basically from the results of whatever you do, the experiments you do. And that experiment can be anything. It can be a campaign, it can be some workflow, it can be an ABM initiative, it can be a program template improvement, it can be anything in Marketo. So uh, this whole discussion is towards principles instead of templates, that what are the core principles we can adopt to improve overall progress in whatever we do in Marketo. So when you are discovering these outcomes, and you are actually discovering goals, so this is how we usually explore the unknown, and this is how we make the unknown known. So that's how I wanted to start it. Ruchi, if you can maybe yeah, I mean, this was, again, we were just discussing that goals aren't usually achieved, they are discovered. So let's get into the technical parts, because I already am a bit late. So the first one is the illusion of simplicity. um, and this one has two aspects to it. I'm going to take an example of let's suppose you want to change a subject line of the email. If you think about it in a technical perspective, it's pretty simple. You just need to update that subject line in the email, you approve it, and it's done. All you need to do is maybe check the renders, maybe uh, check it with some kind of checklist, that it is precise, it's as per the requirements and whatnot, and we're done. So that is one angle. The other angle is that uh, although technically it's simple, but if you think about changing a subject line, it might also mean the whole alignment with how the message we are delivering via the CTA buttons and the messaging on the landing page. So think about reading that you have some promise on subject line, followed by some very relevant CTA messaging, followed by some very relevant landing page. You change one part of subject line, maybe for example, the illustration on the right side, instead of cut SaaS spend by 20% this year, you want to make it more generic, modernize your SaaS stack, because in the first one you are kind of promoting value, and you have some kind of quantific measure there, and you have a very clear cut request of a demo. Versus, I mean, if you want to modernize your SaaS and then you say that request a demo, it might not align as accurately as it may align with let's talk. A bit of content strategy for sure. I don't want anyone to be confused in that area. But I don't think we live in a world anymore where we are order takers, because um, everyone appreciates your perspective on like how things can change if we change one of the things. So that's the illusion of simplicity, that changing something is minor and we can say that it's just a minor change. And from a, it's from more of a marketer's perspective, it's a big change. And from a technical perspective, it is not a very big change, but it can impact the performance. It can ultimately come back in form of a question from results, that why did the conversion on this email is not normal. um, okay, so that's the nuance here. And yeah, that's how you change it. And we don't just want to talk about what is the issue here, we also want to talk about how to avoid. I think I have been a long advocate of having a pre-flight or running a QA round again, even if the change is small. So this is, I mean, if you ask any QA expert, they will tell you that this is actually a basic way to operate. that any iteration means that your previous QA is redundant. But in the community of Marketo, we tend to change things and we don't tend to see a lot of impact around it. And I think that's where a lot of value lies. If you can address that impact while you're making the change, you might see less impact in the long run, and you will see less of those questions of um, uh, why something has happened, and you will need less investigation. So consider technical as well as strategic aspects of impact for any case. So that's one. And okay, let's go to the second one. And you can see it's more of uh, we're not just talking from a technical perspective here. So we're also talking from a perspective of like personality of whosoever is working, right? It's also strategic. I mean, why you are doing what you are doing, and it's also a bit psychological. So whenever something is easy, like in my experience, I have seen big issues happen whenever something is easy. And I happen to remember right now, I have these discussions with my friend that accidents will rarely happen at places where there is a lot of traffic and whatnot. They usually happen in silent roads where there is very less chance of accident happening, because that's where uh, you drop your guard. And that's where the complacency builds. I think that's the point we're making. When you're repeating something day in day out, it tends to become very normal because you are not showing any issue on a day-to-day basis. uh, it tricks the mind that there is no issue, and that can sometimes skip into some things where we maybe skip audience validation because we have done it 100 times, right? We have muscle memory, right? Maybe in one of the cases your muscle memory didn't have the additional filter, so it can misfire to a wrong segment. And yes, this can always happen, but this can be avoided. Again, principle, not a very exact thing. It can be many things. Maybe you want to have an opt-in filter, maybe you want to exclude someone from the life cycle stages and things like that. So that's where we are saying that the comfort trap is something you want to avoid. Okay, I think we cannot skip talking about checklist culture because this is a huge, impactful tactic to avoid errors, because this is where you list every possible error and but the magic happens if you are doing it religiously. You can do this in a very, I would say, complacent manner. If you're doing it on a daily basis, and I would not blame you. The nature of this task is like that you will eventually get boring if you're doing the same checklist again and again. So these are some basic types of checklists, right? I have worked on more projects where the pre-flights were on the checklist. um, I think Ruchi has led teams almost on every type of checklist. And renders are usually done from the people who are working on emails and landing pages, because that's where we are using the render functionality, litmus or inbuilt market, or even in your devices. And then there's also a precision tech. We don't talk about it for the precision checklist. It's more about how precise you're making it. It means that are you creating something which is requested? Is it exactly as per the requirements? Are you missing some sentence or not? So it's usually those copy paste and control F filters where you're checking on whether the content you added to the email is exactly the same which was requested. So there can be different type of checklists, and they can catch many errors before you launch. So pre-flights, you run through all the emails, and you see, okay, this link is missing, something is, sometimes it's not even your issue. Sometimes it's like, okay, I did everything fine, but why is the pre-flight not happening correctly? Maybe it's something else. Maybe you want to talk to market or support, something happened on the back end. Maybe it's something the system don't down. It's not like the only technical parts you want to cover up. So that's another area here where the boring stuff saves you. And the problem is when you treat it as routine, it is easy to skip certain critical items. For example, you're adding some email and you skip the pre-header, right? Doesn't hurt. It will still send the email, but if you look from a strategic point, it might impact the open rate. And here's and the good part these days is that we have chat gpt. This is something I fetched from it. For like I asked for like what are different type of checklists we can create. You can see that we can have these kind of checks. Previously all this was manual in the Google Sheets or whatever systems you are using. Now it's very easy to have those checks in place. You don't need a lot of time to create a checklist anymore. um, and you don't need to treat them with less important, because that can cause rework, and that can cause errors which are actually preventable, because we already know what can happen. So that's one. There are certain tactics how you can prevent it. One of the good tactics which I have found helpful is to rotate QC roles. So if you are doing a checklist, let's say for renter this week or this month, it might be a good idea to pick something else next month, because that kind of adds some context to your brain, and you remain active. It's actually natural to feel boring if you're repeating stuff and if you're not improving it. And the other way is you can audit random tasks. Like if there's a check that whether your checklist is fine or not, it it actually enforces the people who are using that checklist to do it more carefully. Sometimes the issue is that um, because no one cares, why should I care? So if you care for just one or two checks, maybe it was random, like randomly one or two or three, it can make people accountable. I think that's it's more about accountability here versus the technical aspects. Or in some cases you can mandate documentation of evidence. There is an example, like for a lot of projects we used to take a screenshot of the setup where we have this, okay, we have this campaign, this is the impact, and I used to send the clients that, okay, these are the numbers which I have right now, so that I know that if it is 2000 people, it was 2000 people at that point on time, because I took the snapshot. Not needed in a world where everyone understands, but something you can use to prevent high stakes situations. Okay, this one is again a bit different, overestimating technology. And so this is where I think a lot of discussion is being happening on innovation. And talk about any tool, be it Marketo, be it anything else, any everyone is talking about innovation, and everyone is kind of attributing it to the tool. Not everyone, many of us. And the common error, it's a very common error, is to dismiss something because it's not feasible in the platform using its normal features. Like we tend to dismiss new requests. Uh, and it's not wrong, because if you ask me to do something in Marketo which is not possible, obviously it's not possible. So yes, developers and practitioners are usually right in the technical terms, but if you look at the problem, it might have a different solution. It might have a solution outside Marketo, or it might end up in Marketo using some different approach, using the approach we talked about called cybernetics. So this is something I learned last year when I was in discussion with someone from privacy, and we wanted to have a data retention workflow setup. It was not a workflow, but it was more of a provision compliance perspective, that you need to delete stuff after these many times, and this thing and that thing, and it's simply not possible in Marketo to do that. But later on, during experimentation, I ended up finding a workflow which actually can use system tokens and calculate dates to calculate their due dates whenever they should be deleted. So if you look at the next slide, that's the workflow which is a result of an experiment, and it worked, right? I would not know this until I experimented. There is so much in Marketo which you will only uncover when you experiment it. So that experimentation is really a very powerful tactic. It can give you very interesting projects, and it can give you very powerful outcomes which you can use in your profile, in your projects, in your maybe CVs, resumes, because that is very unique to you. So let's um, I'll pause here. Ruchi, do you want to add a comment? It's like half past 30.
Yeah, I think you are going in a correct direction, laying the basic ground rules that everybody needs to follow. And like you said, accidents, they tend to happen when we are the most confident, you know. So, yeah, I totally second that.
Okay, let's increase it.
Yeah.
Then we have a bit more serious topics coming up. Non-negotiable compliance. Um, I call it non-negotiable because I kind of have observed that people do try to negotiate their way around it. Isn't it fine? Doesn't it make sense? We're sending to this XYZ. Yes, it is very simple, but compliance is compliance, right? It's usually better if you follow it by design and for the reason it is in place. But even if it's something you don't want to do, you will have to do. So I'm using the very bare minimum example here. One missed filter, literally one missed filter, can send a wrong email, and it's not about that. People are going to get paranoid about one wrong email. It's more about that you as a brand didn't take care about such a complex topic, especially in the privacy first era. And for example, sending to people who have not opted in where the consent is mandatory. Um, it rarely happens. Now you can see this almost in all instances that GDPR, consent management, and things like this are in place. I think it's a perfect time that these errors can happen because it has started to become normal. So it might be a good idea that you check on like what is your marketing segmentation saying about consent, and you can have eligibility segmentation, and you can also have special workflows. By special workflow, what I mean is in the next slide. So instead of having a filter in each smart list for all of the smart campaigns where you're sending the email, it's a good idea to mark them marketing suspended, because that is a global filter. You don't need to do something in smart campaigns, and that takes care of itself by the system defined field. And I am a fan of system defined fields because they're scalable. Marketo takes care of them itself, and you don't need to configure add-ons on every campaign you're doing. You get one workflow, you activate it, and you're done for the day and the year probably. So that's again a good idea on using the global filters. Then we have workflow errors. I think this is something might not be as impactful. It really depends upon what you are missing. If you are missing an incorrect SFDC campaign in the flow step, or things related to something which are in radar of sales, definitely a big issue. But if you are maybe missing a data value update, not a big issue, but until it becomes one, right? It's small only in a small timeline. So if you take a look at your program templates you're cloning or the projects you're doing, there are usually flow steps that you add people to SFDC campaigns, or you mark MQLs or things like that. You can see if you do things a bit differently, that can cascade into different directions which you don't want. And again, pre-flights checklist are a really good idea to execute before you publish anything. But the another one is workflow testing with scenarios. So you can always a quick question here. If you are able to see the screen, can you guess what is the error in this change program status? while I am talking. Like if someone can answer, can just type in chat. I'll continue. And in this case, you can also have some kind of form fills. In this case, is that um, trigger, and you can have such a spreadsheet where you are actually managing the testing scenarios. So you can actually test the scenarios that the workflow is expecting as per the expectation, or there is some difference, and you can mark it no, yes, based on success pass criteria. Kind of gives you more robust confidence in terms of how the processing is happening, and is it as expected or is it different. Okay. Okay, so then we have list uploads. I think everyone knows about this one. Can cause a lot of inaccurate reporting, sync issues, big issues. Preventive measures usually include templates, standard field values, regular duty and standardization workflows. Um, we just cannot skip this topic while we are discussing this, but I'm pretty sure this is something which is very very relevant and almost known to everyone. Okay, that's how you can have your standard drop list. And these are some of the zoom out principles where you can have your checks, add your labels, and use a decision matrix. And if you try to decode this workflow, you are able to create a very huge data management program, which is pretty interesting to do in Marketo, and it's very impactful. It contributes to a lot of effectiveness in marketing. Okay, I think let's get to a bit more meaty stuff now with Ruchi.
Yes. Thank you, Balkar. It's very well covered. There are teeny tiny mistakes, or how a small human error it can basically trigger a chain reaction of consequences. And most of us, I'm 100% sure, have seen this happen in one way or the other. So basically, when your most confident or your most polished workflow fails to deliver the result that you were expecting, or one small oversight, it can trigger a ripple effect, basically. So that's something which becomes both challenging to fix and, I mean, impossible to forget. You know, but it becomes a lifetime of experience. And the whole session for today, it's based on our learnings, combined learnings, and some of the examples that we have taken from other client works, or from other team members. So, ever seen a tiny domino like to tip over and knock down the entire row? So this image is basically depicting that level of consequences. So sometimes it's just a missing piece in your strategy, or sometimes it's a structural flaw or error that can quietly break down the reporting or the lead flow. But individually, they might look harmless, but together they can kind of derail the whole performance. So yeah, so let's explore a few real world examples where a small oversight can create a big impact, and how to catch these dominoes before before they fall. So we'll take some of the stories, and some of the, there were many scenarios that Balkar and I were thinking about, but we decided to pick and choose some of the common ones. I'm sure everyone has to kind of, some key takeaways out of that. So I'll be dividing or covering both the strategic misfires that can happen, and also the structural mistakes for these areas, starting with the lead scoring pitfalls. Okay, so everybody knows that lead scoring is deeply intertwined with both a strategic and structural setup in marketing. So when either of them is misaligned or poorly implemented, the entire lead scoring model, it can become unreliable or maybe misleading overall. So here's how strategic misfires can happen. So starting with the misaligned scoring criteria, So you would notice that the model or the framework that you have in place, it's not kind of bringing in the capturing the buying intent or what is your ideal customer profile basically. So common example is when the lead is kind of fast tracked to MQL under certain criteria. Maybe they just directly came onto your website and kind of registered for direct meeting with your sales rep, or just submitted the contact us form with you. So you kind of fast track that lead to MQL straight away. But you would notice when it was passed to sales, it was not actually sales ready, and that action, it rarely got converted to a conversion. So these scenarios may also happen. Also, when there is no scoring decay in place, you're not decaying any scoring, but the scoring, if your database is like very pretty much old and your scoring model is equally old, so you notice that some of the leads they're getting scored, since the over the years, and they're still hot uh, in your reporting. Also, there can be a scenario where your overall scoring is based on just one dimension. Either you are focusing on their demographics or personas, or their behavioral activities, basically, or just too much focus to capture their buying intent. So I've added a basic example like a student is navigating your website, and it's downloading a lot of content multiple times maybe, or downloading different case studies or white papers, and based on that activity or multiple activities, it was scored to the MQL threshold. But when you evaluate it further whether it's actually qualified for the next sales cycle or not, so you would notice that it was scored too frequently, but it's not actually your target industry at all. So there you would start thinking over that, whether the MQL threshold I've used, it's adequate or not. Is it too low or too high? So leads may get routed to sales with no selling or buying signals, basically. And also, if there's no sales and marketing feedback, so you will notice that there are no regular check-ins happening, and your scoring model over the time, it will become ineffective, inefficient, and kind of outdated overall. So there's some of the methods or tips and tricks that you can take care of these pitfalls. So always use or co-create rules with your sales teams. So interview what their intent is, how they kind of mark a particular lead is qualified for the sales cycle or not. So do check with them and prepare your scoring criteria based on those feedback. And also adding a decay in your scoring criteria is very much recommended. So you would not want to score a person who's inactive like for the past 30 days or more than that even. Also, always revisit your MQL definitions with sales. So, like I said, it's very important to have regular feedback loops with them. So, audit all the scoring and decay methodologies with them, the MQL thresholds, MQL uh, criteria with them, and align your scoring based on that feedback. So, also, it's important to balance your scoring between the behavioral signals and the ideal persona that the lead is actually belonging to. So this was focused on the strategic part. Let's quickly walk it through how the structural mistakes can happen. So Balkar covered some of the items that, there can be workflow errors or stuff like that. So there can be wrong scoring fields in use sometimes. So if you're mapping the scores to the incorrect field, you can very easily see the impact later on. And if there are different campaigns which are actually duplicating, or they are duplicated and they are scoring the same criteria twice, so obviously the total score, it will get a boost, and you are you're ending up scoring a lead twice. If there is incorrect workflow order, which can create a huge impact. For example, you marked a particular person MQ straight away, but you kind of fail to score that lead before it, so it can easily damage the reporting overall. And if there is no total score reset, like I was emphasizing, you are going on scoring a particular lead, it may easily cross 1,000 mark. Like I've seen these examples, so they are crossing 1,000 or maybe 2,000 marks very easily if there is no cap or no scoring reset. We talked about field mapping issues. So CRM integration is not syncing the scores correctly, or the field mapping is missing, or sometimes the fields that are in use for managing the CRM and your marketing reporting, basically, there are, some of them are only mapped with the contact object, and they're missing on lead object. So there are some of the gaps that may hamper the entire sync criteria. So to summarize, or like just summary of recommendations, always standardize on the correct scoring fields. Do centralize the scoring concepts or scoring campaigns. Use proper naming conventions which are relatable to a particular scoring criteria, or the the deduplication logic. Always test flow. We covered about doing pre-flights before every launch, so it's important that you test flow uh, in order to just thoroughly check whether the scores are actually bringing in results for the correct activity or correct demographic or not. Also, relying on the system fields, do timestamp where the leads is reaching the threshold, timestamp that activity, and always implement the reset rules. Audit the field mappings where you see the sync issues are bound to happen. So always audit the mappings regularly, and create the field visibility on the sync rules. So it's always helpful to document all these activities basically. Okay, so in my next segment, I'm going to talk about some of the engagement program strategies and structural areas, basically. So let's pick it. I mean, most of the marketer users, they love using engagement programs until they don't work the way they thought they would. Okay, so it usually kind of looks very simple or easy to implement. um, Everybody starts with good intentions, sharp focus, and like we're just going to build a stream, or throwing some emails or nested programs and use the cadence. But sometimes even a simple looking setup, it ends up underperforming basically. So sometimes the strategy is off when we are kind of sending everyone same message, generic message, without even thinking like which is the segmentation they belong from, or where are they in their journey. Or sometimes it's the structure, like forgetting to add the success criteria for the nested programs basically, and or building the streams which are way too complicated, and even we get confused when we revisit them. So I will share some real stories, or some of the real stories, that what can go wrong and how to fix a few tweaks that can save you a lot from the cleaning up later. So starting with the misaligned content with audience. So what may happen is you're using a series of content which was a beginner level, but you're sending it to the middle of funnel stream. Or on the other hand, maybe in the enterprise leads, they are receiving SMB focused content material. So that's the strategic part of it. So I mean, you would end up notice that people they didn't find it relevant at all, or you would notice some higher unsubscribe rates, or poor engagement results overall. So it's important to kind of curate the content which actually matches the segment um, and the buying stage. So basically, it has to be relevant to drive the results, and it has to be relevant with the goals that you attach with a particular engagement program. Another area is when there is no clear nurture strategy. So they both go hand in hand, misaligned content, or your nurture strategy was not clear enough. So what you would notice is that a team, they set up a nurture program with all the best intentions, but they kind of launched it as a one common massive stream, which is holding all the generic content. Maybe it's a newsletter or product release or blog articles, but there was one problem that everyone from different segmentation, different personas, everyone, they qualified into that stream, because there was no persona overall. So whether it was a brand new lead or a sales ready prospect, so they all ended up receiving the same content. So what could be the impact? Engagement rates, they will be impacted visibly. People will ignore your emails because they didn't align with their intent or their preferences. Also, you will receive a lot of feedback from sales teams that these leads are not ready enough. So why are we getting them now? So don't route it towards us. And as a result, marketing will find it challenging to justify the program's overall performance, because the open rates or click rates, they didn't improve, and there was no real conversions that happened out of it. So, what would be the lesson learned here? That there is no one size fits all strategy, and missed opportunity to drive a meaningful engagement or moving the leads through the funnel. So you have to uh, design or kind of plan the streams that actually align with buyers' life journey, or either they are in early stage or mid stage or at a matured stage of the journey. So relevance is the real driver in this case. In this slide, I'm going to cover some of the structural aspects. Like there are different ways that you can set up an engagement program. Either you use emails directly in a stream, or maybe you can go with the nested programs if you want to add more granularity or kind of more action based transition rules. So, I mean, like I said, it's very easy to mess up when the things are going smooth or when they look the simplest. So, again, another example could be that like team wanted to build an elaborate engagement program using multiple streams or deeply nested programs, for example, and smart campaigns, they are everywhere. So it would eventually complicate the structure and would give you less control when you are transitioning a lead from one stage to the other. So it becomes very hard to test, even harder to debug, and eventually becomes difficult to optimize. So basically, so nobody in the team would know what happened, whether it fully worked or not. So Marketo provides you very robust features in each and every program type. So if you can use them, doesn't mean that you should every time. So simplicity always scales better. A well-structured, clear framework, it will always outperform. And but smart instead of smart but tangled setup. Yeah. So in our eagerness, we are building powerful nurtures, but sometimes we end up building the fragile ones.
Yep.
And then again, when you're using nested programs, they come up with another level of complications or kind of requirement that you that's actually a prerequisite when you're using them. So in case you forget to add the program success criteria for the nested programs, you would notice that the success wasn't tracked uh, against those nested programs, and your stream logic may fail. The leads, they may get stuck in a stream or the other, and overall there will be no success tracking in the nested programs. um, Again, the structure will become overcomplicated, and the reporting will show the zero success or engagement score if you kind of forget to add that. So always define program success steps, because Marketo is not going to do that. You have to remember and you have to do it yourself. So set up the rules with a clear logic.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. With respect to the time, I mean, I'm going to skip this and quickly moving on to the final story, which is cloning a program template. So Bilkar covered the gist of it. So cloning a program template, it does feel like a magic, but it also comes with a lot of complications. So if you forget to add, uh, because whenever you're cloning, some of the filters, they auto update, but some of the segmentation logics or smart list logics, they will not update automatically. And if you fail to update that after cloning, so there will be impact. Some of the examples, common examples, are you're cloning a webinar program, but you kind of missed updating the event date or event details. So you would notice they're still referencing from the original ones. Same goes with the tokens if they are still in use from the original program. So yeah, so it may damage the brand trust, and it may cause confusion for the registrants. Okay, and here's a quick overview of the QA tips that you can follow. Always updating the campaign filters and triggers, always review and replace tokens, redefine the program success steps which are relevant to the cloned program, always disable and review operational campaigns if need be. So check and schedule recurring campaigns if need be, and always run test using the sample records or internal seed list, or doing pre-flights like Wilkar mentioned. It's very important. Okay, so I think we we have covered a lot today,
Yeah.
but the key
Almost
message
all time.
here is like small mistakes in Marketo can have big ripple effects. But the good news is, with the right process, QA habits, pre-flights, and governance in place, so we can handle or we can prevent most of these completely.
Great. Thanks, Ruchi, for
Yeah,
all the comments, and I think it was a good session.
yeah,
I think we just have Ashish and a couple of more members, but any questions, do let us know. Thanks for the comment, Ashish.
yeah,
You can speak up if you want to. This will be available on YouTube, but any discussions or in the future users groups, please feel free to
yeah,
contribute or ask anything you want to like.
So it's a great session, both of you, and it's very knowledgeable because most of the times we know the things that we need to implement, but we have not implemented in our process as well. So these are the things we are checking on a day-to-day basis, and
mhm,
the lead scoring method you have explained
mhm,
particularly which we need to check and which we need to implement. So that is the good thing. Thank you
yeah.
very much, both of you. Thanks.
Great,
Thanks for
great to
the
hear that, Ashish. Okay, I think Ruchi, we can wind it up, and till next
yeah.
time, let's think about like do let us know whatever you want us to cover next time. I will try to cover it.
Thanks everyone for joining in.
Thanks all. Bye.